Hey guys, it's Jet888 here. Let's see, it is March 27th. By now, most people have heard about the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsing after being struck by a cargo ship in Baltimore, Maryland. So I want to show you a couple things I found a little interesting. Here's part of that design of that bridge, and look how interestingly similar it is to this cell tower. Also notice the upside down type of Baphomet head design. I'll just give you a second to look at that. Just find it a little interesting. Here we go. So I'm just going to talk about some symbolisms, a little bit of gematria, a little bit of anagrams. So it's just going to be all over the place. So typical of my videos, I'm just trying to wing it. So of course we have the number 6 in here. The number 6, I don't know if that's changed, but when the story first came out, 6 people were presumed dead. And this is my little random storyboard here that I'm going to try to get through some of this. So some of the numerology, the word power, because the ship, the cargo ship, lost power. And you see that has the same numerology of 77. That's the simple gematria. And Scott, as in Francis Scott Key, is also 77. And the Maryland Bridge was opened in 1977. So I thought those were interesting numbers. 77. So I'm just going to give you my theories and just my ideas here. I'm not saying anything's right. This is how I'm seeing some things in this picture here of the cargo ship. You see the cross in there? I feel like that's sort of interesting, a little symbolic, because I feel like Christians in the United States are being taken down, and this country is being taken down. And the reason why they had to hit this bridge, because it was named after Francis Scott Key, and he is the one who, through his poem, he wrote the Star-Spangled Banner, the national anthem. And so this says, experience was in the early 19th century, as in, COVID-19, 19 into the poem that became the national anthem of the United States. So to take this bridge down, I think, is a very symbolic gesture. I think they're trying to take down the United States. They're taking out patriotism, and they're taking out Christianity. So one tiny little example of this is the Patapsco River. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but at 978 and 163. This is also the same numerology as Make America Great Again, which I don't know if I completely agree with that movement. I think the patriots are in the right place, but I think they're being used and set up. But anyhow, Make America Great Again just happens to be the same numerology as the English and simple gematria as the Patapsco River. So the shipmaster was also Ukrainian, from what I've heard. And this says, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, just like the collapse of this bridge, it says the Ukrainian government declared in its constitution that it would henceforth be referred to as Ukraine. With the establishment of its independence, Ukraine became a demeaning term, and it's implied that Ukraine remained a territorial region of one of its former rulers. Western journalists, U.S. politicians, and the American entertainment industry, look at that, the U.S. politicians, American entertainment industry, continue to refer to the post-Soviet state as the Ukraine. An episode of Seinfeld in 1995 is where one such offense occurred. So I want to go show you some things about that Seinfeld episode. So in one episode where Kramer and Newman were playing the game Risk, Newman asked, "Are you sure you know where the impound yard is?" And look at, see how Newman's hand on our right. So these are Freemason gestures. They're Freemason Bolsheviks, members of the Grand Orient. So there's Marx, Lenin, Stalin, and Trotsky performing the Masonic hidden hand. So this is supposedly the jabulon, or jabulon, is a word which is allegedly used in some rituals of royal arch masonry. But anyhow, when I saw that, that's what I thought. And these guys, it says episode of the Emmy and the Golden Globe award-winning TV series Seinfeld called The Label Maker. Kramer and Newman are playing the game of Risk. Neither one trusts the other to leave the game unattended without cheating. So Kramer keeps it in Jerry Seinfeld's apartment. So Newman actually asked Kramer, "Are you sure you know where the impound yard is?" And instead, what this shows is it says, "I'm sure you know where the A power goddess." Oh, stop. Kramer says, "Oh, stop. But it says, this is what the writing says. It says, "I'm sure you know where the A power goddess." So I looked up the word power because our little ship here, Dali, as in Salvador Dali, lost power. So remember the Francis Scott Key is also 77, as is the word power. So with their words, power goddess, I went and looked up the word power goddess, and some of the numerology matches. It matches the new doctor. Now, how many of you have experienced some interesting situations in the past 4 years with possibly a new doctor, or the new doctors? They're not the doctors that they used to be, because they don't seem to care too much about what happens to you. But anyhow, I thought that was kind of interesting. So the power goddess is also equivalent to the numerology of the new doctor. And it's also part of the numerology is also the same as future of our human race. So I thought that was sort of interesting. So something else that kind of caught my eyes with some of this imagery is they show you, because everything you see, they want you to see. I mean, they want you to see everything. So I'm looking at the green signs, the north and south, south and north, like hell and heaven. But 695 is the numbers I'm going to go look at. 695, as in highway 695. So there's the 695, and look at how it's matched up with the word poetry. Poetry is 695, and so is Saint Keys. So you have the Francis Scott Keys, which is the same numerology as poetry, and Francis Scott Key, who the bridge was named after, they used his poetry. So it was the poetry that Francis Scott Key, it was his poetry that they used for the national anthem, which is the Star-Spangled Banner. And 695 is also Salute to America. And the Jewish gematria of Star-Spangled Banner, the numerology is 666. The English and simple gematria is 1140 and 190, which both of those is Aleister Crowley. So he may not have been a Freemason, but he did do Masonic rituals. So that's kind of obvious about the little horse eye up there and the triangle. You know that capstone that we see on our $1 bill? You know that one? That basically says the New World Order right there. So they are taking down the United States. If anyone doubts it, just go look at the back of your $1 bill, if you still have any money, as they try to make us all go digital. As you can kind of see, if you can read that, it says no cash, right? No cash. So you basically have to use a card. That's digital currency. No cash. And there's 33 layers there of brick. So there's your Masonic. So in this episode of Seinfeld, there's a couple things that I noticed. Let me see, I have to go to another picture. Beside New Man's hidden hand there, New Man, get it? So behind Kramer there on our left, there's the word traffic. Traffic, as those cars went over that Francis Scott Key Bridge. Did you notice the traffic? Oh yeah, one more thing about the power goddess that they had in there. Along with the numerology of power goddess and future of our human race, there's also unlocked boxes, the white rabbit, which we are in the year of the rabbit, and another false flag are some of the numerology. So unlocked boxes. So notice all those boxes and the word there, M-A-E-R-S-K, Maersk, I think how you pronounce it. I think that's a Dutch company. But if you look at the anagram of that, the word is masker. See there what we've been a lot of people have been doing the last handful of years or less, so masker. There you go. There's your unlocked boxes, your container, shipping containers. And again, you've got that Baphomet looking design, and I'll show you, stick around because it gets a little bit more interesting. So some of the numerology that goes with those containers, the shipping containers name, the masker, planes. Here for the simple and English gematria, it's water, soul, satanic, reset, honey, as in the hive mentality, work, iPhone, Pharaoh, Italy, New World Order, Fed, that's the NWO Fed, killer, Wuhan, and Gabriella, and I'll show you about Gabriella or Gabriella later. And there's the numerology of the name of the boat. It's Dali, and that's also the same numerology as B, Cabal. And when I see the word Dali, I also think of that Salvador Dali. But here's some of the numerology with Salvador Dali, if I can say it right. Look above it. It's injections, Great Reset, the Storm, March Madness, we're in March, and Patriots, like the Star Spangled Banner. When I look at the anagram for Salvador Dali's name, just one is Alas Ad Viral. Now, one of Salvador Dali's famous paintings is called The Persistence of Memory. And you know how they are going after people's minds and their memories. I think a lot of you guys know about, they're trying to get us to lose our minds and literally not have any more thought. But notice the clocks. Notice the clocks. So when you look at the word Dali, the anagram for Dali is also, sorry about that, is also dial, as in a clock. Laid also, like ley lines, but dial and Dali. So try to remember that clock. Also some of the numerology that was on that container ship, the Maersk, the Dutch company, which is also, the anagram is masker. There's the word on the bottom, the masker, or Maersk, I guess Maersk is how you say it. But look above it too. So you've got the words work and OWS as in Operation Warp Speed. So there's a little bit of a connection there. And the word Maersk, or masker, at 216 for Jewish gematria. There's also 216, is also T-Mobile and Tesla, among a lot of other words that I thought were interesting. So did anybody happen to watch the halftime show this last Super Bowl by any chance, where they had Usher? I'm going to pan back and show you this, but here's the bottom is the Dali yesterday, and here's Usher when he first started his halftime show. I just find it kind of interesting likeness. So when I look at him, and when he stood up and walked, it made me feel like some kind of weird angel or something. But I also saw in this design like a Baphomet head also. This is what a Baphomet head can look like. So on the right's part of the bridge. So again, here's Usher's Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show. This is what they first started out with. And here's him, just a screen capture. And notice that bird, it almost looks like the phoenix. So here's the phoenix. So basically it's you break it down. It says like rise from the ashes. So you have to break it down to build it back up, like build back better. Just like they do the military. They break you down and they build you up. Basically they mind control you and they indoctrinate you into their belief system. But as he's singing with all this laser stuff going on in the background, and really when you look at the activity of it, it looks like they create the shapes of a Baphomet head. There's your triangle there. And he also sings the words, situations will arise. And remember the Dali and the Salvador Dali, his artwork? This is what, they have a clock. It's a huge clock. Here's some other words. It says, feeling know what it is, but it's, she's got me twisted. Twisted. Sort of like that bridge. So there's that picture of that phoenix. There's that picture I just thought really resembled the Dali. And here it's interesting because the words say, I got it feeling I'm control, but he actually says that he doesn't have control. His words actually say, I'm losing control, is what they said. He said, I'm losing control. And then he says, I don't know why this isn't focusing, but you got to be smart about it. What with the guys I sacrifice, there were 6 people at least that were sacrificed on March 26th last night when the Dali hit the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And here he is like tossing, it looks like a water drop, but that's in the background, or a flame, a blue flame, as he's pitching it out to us. And they also had the smoke, like the billow of smoke that came from the stack of that Dali. See, the news covers it quite a bit. Heavy plumes of black smoke billow from, that's the Haskett garage. So columns of black smoke billow from Ukraine. There's Ukraine, billows of black smoke. Thick plumes of black smoke billow over Gaza Strip. Huge plumes of black smoke billow into Paris sky. Interesting, Paris, as in France. Show billows of black smoke as the bridge went down, and that explosion just happened to happen at that joint. Did you notice that? There's 3 explosions there. And it's interesting too how one pillar gets hit, but 3 sections go down. Isn't that interesting? We've seen that before. Was that building 7, I think? Huh. And do you notice the line here? Another thing I noticed during Usher's halftime show, there's some of the imagery on the bottom. There, I put them together a little closer. It's kind of the same. Here's another shot of his imagery with the black plume of smoke in there. So going back to the Seinfeld thing, I wanted to read real quick just some of their words. It said, I'm sure you know we're a power goddess. That's not what he said, but that is what that computer showed up as. Even though he said, are you sure you know where the impound yard is? I don't know how you get power goddess from impound yard, but Newman says, I can't think, there's all this noise. And, or is it because I built a stronghold around, that's what Kramer said, is it because I built a stronghold around you, around Greenland? I've driven you out of Western Europe, and I've left you teetering on the brink of complete annihilation. I'm not beaten yet. I still have armies in the Ukraine. You could know you know what the Ukraine is. It's a sitting duck, a road apple, Newman. Brain is we, it's people. I think it's time to put the hurt, right? So put the hurt on. Isn't that weird? But instead of saying this guy on the bus says, I come from Ukraine, you not say Ukraine is weak. And instead this said, time to put the hurt, right? Come from Ukraine, you not say York Renwick, which is kind of just weird anyhow. So one weird visual today here on my computer, the Microsoft, it shows this up all the time. So this little image with the star, the half moon and the 2 stars, behind the theater. You know, that half moon almost looks like the Shriner logo. That image there, I've shown it before. So this image was today, March 27th. It's Wednesday today. And World Theater Day, the best of Broadway. And look at that, look at those faces. And then when I looked at Usher, look at his face. Just all sweaty and stuff, wet. But in the background of this scene that Kramer and Newman are talking to each other, this says, "Don't take 40 tons for granted." And they're saying, it says, "Greenland, I've driven you out of Western Europe," as they play the game Risk. But the background, "Don't take 40 tons for granted." Where have we kind of heard that? Anywhere? Do you remember anywhere have we heard that before? So behind them was this train-looking caboose car thing, and right underneath it, it stated, "Don't take 40 tons for granted." So I just thought the weird thing for 40 and the train thing. So one thing I did find is the 2023 Ohio train derailment. I thought that was sort of interesting. Remember that? On February 3rd, 38 cars of a Norfolk Southern freight train carrying hazardous materials derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, United States. Just one note here. So this story I'm looking at, it's talking about the derailment, and the story comes out February 3rd, 2023 at 5:55. That's Pacific Standard Time, so that's the West Coast. And then it says that a train derailment occurred on February 3rd, 2023 at 8:55 p.m. So what, these guys had just happened to have the entire story at the exact same time that the derailment happened? And this is Wikipedia, apparently, that had this. It sort of reminds me of that book that was available about the Maui wildfires that was published 2 days after the fire. Kind of quick, huh? And look at the coordinates. It's 40, 50, 10. Anyhow, it's got a lot of 40s in there with their coordinates. I just thought that was weird. And Norfolk Southern, who's headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. Here's all your CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, CMO, COO, and presidents. Here's their logo minus this little part I didn't take out. But have you noticed, if anyone's been paying any attention to Netflix lately, when you look at any of the videos, any of the movies that you see, they always will have some kind of horse in the background. Always. There'll be either a picture, a real horse, some reference to a horse, something. Just look, pay attention. You'll always see a horse, some kind of statue or something. So I was kind of curious if that's what that's about, the Norfolk Southern. So I looked at the anagram for Norfolk Southern, and that's hard for me to say, Norfolk Southern. There's a lot of possibilities of anagrams that you can find, but the one I found interesting, Norfolk Southern, is Cronus throne flu, like corona, the Cronus throne flu. I thought that was interesting. Felon Cronus hurt. And so when I also looked at Kronos, here's Kronos here clipping little Cupid's wings with other insinuations in there. There's your sickle, like the Grim Reaper sickle. And Kronos was a Greek, like Kronos was a god of the harvest, member of the Titans, and Greek for time. That's what Kronos means, is Greek for time. Remember Usher's halftime show at the last Super Bowl? Time is Kronos, and there he is on a huge clock. And Salvador Dali, which the cargo ship's name was, well, it was just Dali, not Salvador Dali. But we've got the reference to the clocks again. And Kramer's name, when I say Kramer's, It's also storm. Just looking really quick at Kramer's name. Kramer is 66 in the bottom there, and it's also Picasso. Kind of like another artist that sort of slaughters the subjects. But if you're a Freemason and someone asks you what the time is, you don't give the time. You say there is no time any longer. That's what you're supposed to say. There's another picture of Usher with the Cabal, black and white, Freemasonry, black and white. What's up is down. And if you look at that halftime show, you just see this symbol all over the place. It's in the lasers. It's in the background of him singing. You also have a lot of the triangles with pyramid shapes. If you go look at the Dali Museum, you will see this. This is what this looks like. I just find that's interesting, the Dali Museum. It looks almost like all that scaffolding that we saw at the Francis Scott Key Bridge. This is St. Petersburg in Florida, actually, where all the Shriners are. But this scaffolding here is actually in Paris, part of the Eiffel Tower. So there was a Freemason, sorry I don't have all the information on this, but George Marcoux, he said, Freemasonry shall rule the world over and form its immortal principles inherited from one generation to the next, will be built a stable foundation, the basis of a more perfect ideal society. They control the European Union too, the EU. So anyhow, here is the Dali Museum in Florida near the city of St. Petersburg. And interesting too how the Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital just happens to be really close by. Johns Hopkins, remember the Event 201? So there's Usher on the left, and on the right is the Dali Museum, and there's the scaffolding. And again, showing some of the scaffolding of the bridge. It's just interesting how the exact same shapes. There's the bridge, and there's the cell tower. A cell tower also. See that upside down little Baphomet head? Here's a little bit better of a picture of that Dali Museum, Salvador Dali Museum. So going back to that Norfolk Southern, the train derailment, it's interesting that that was in February 3rd, 2023, and yet it's still under investigation. But yet Biden could say that that bridge collapse was not anything nefarious. He just knew right away. So going back to that Cronus, because I got the word looking at the anagram from Norfolk Southern, it was Cronus throne flu. So you could just go and read this, and it basically, Cronus was willing to, he said, only Cronus was willing to do the deed. And that deed was to castrate Uranus, however you say that. He was willing to castrate Uranus. Have we seen a lot of that going on with our youth lately? So it said, so Gaia, I don't know how you say that, gave him the sickle and placed him in ambush. Further down it says, Cronus attacked him with the sickle, castrating him and casting his testicles into the sea from the blood that spilled out of Uranus and fell upon the earth. Whatever. So I just think that's weird. So threw it into the sea, which the Dali was heading out to sea. And we have Cronus here with a very young baby Cupid on his lap, and you've got the sickle down below. So is he really just clipping his wings, or is he going to castrate him? I don't know which. But then here is your time, your little hourglass there, which represents the keeping of time. And one other thing that I thought was sort of interesting with this Kramer and Newman, as in transhuman, you got your little Ukrainian guy looking off on the distance. And this is specifically about this episode. It says from Seinfeld, season 6, episode 12, the label maker is a pair of Super Bowl tickets circulates among Jerry and his friends. So you got the word Super Bowl in there to go with Usher, who seemed to, in my opinion, to be giving some pretty strong symbolism with the bridge collapse. And I just thought by the way he was dressed, he just sort of reminded me of Gabriel, the angel. And this is just one of many pictures of Gabriel. So this one quick thing. Gabriel, in the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, one of the archangels, Gabriel was the heavenly messenger sent to Daniel to explain the vision of the ram and the he-goat, and to communicate the prediction of the 70 weeks. So 70 weeks is 490 days, and 490 days is also the word of patriots, and it's also the beginning of the end. Remember General Perna during Operation Warp Speed? He said it's D-Day, the beginning of the end, and he said that, and there's your numerology for it. So there's Operation Warp Speed, that's OWS. And 490 is also, it's all connected. And when they mentioned the he-goat, kind of reminds me of that guy again. Can't leave the children alone. And I do feel like some of that symbology is that Baphomet head is the same design in that bridge collapse as in Usher's halftime show as well, as he wears that phoenix bird, like the phoenix rising. And there's the numerology for Usher and Royal and Gabriel. I thought it was Gabriella, but maybe not. So there's Gabriel. It's all 71. They're all connected at 426 and 71. And the reason why I look at the word Royal is during the part of the stories about the Dali and the people that they're trying to rescue who had already been in the water for a while. They called it off, and it says it was a crushing, they called up the search. It said it was a crushing blow to the loved ones of the missing men who had waited for hours at a Royal Farms convenience store near the entrance of the bridge for word of their fate. Anyhow, there's your Royal. There's Usher and Gabriel. So anyhow, you can look at this story a little bit more regarding Cronus. It's kind of interesting. Rise to power. And there's the mutilation of Uranus by Saturn, who is Cronus. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Cronus castrates his father, Uranus. And how many times have we seen that type of thing in our schools right now going on? So to me, it seems like they are taking this country down, like a death by 1,000 cuts. And here's the numerology. In 1407. 1407 just happens to be Super Bowl or Superb Owl. Depends on how you want to move your letters over. So Superb Owl or Super Bowl. 1407 is death by 1,000 cuts, and that's exactly what they're doing to America.